Hello there and welcome to Council of Geeks. My name is Nathaniel Wayne and tonight I am joined by Paul Scavito and Ryan Daly. And in honor of the upcoming release of Spectre, a movie that I think we're all excited about, we are going to talk about James Bond in general. Specifically, we've all got our picks for our personal favorite James Bond film, and we've all picked one, what we feel is an underrated Bond film. We flipped a three-sided coin earlier, which means Ryan gets to go first.
I love my three-sided coin. It always comes up heels. Okay, so my first preference to this, I've seen about 12 of the 24 Bond movies.
I don't think any of us have actually seen all of them.
Not quite all. I've seen most of them.
I've seen most. I'm missing a couple.
Okay, I've seen about half of them. More of the more recent ones from Timothy Dalton onward, and then a few of the.
I have no doubt that true Bond aficionados who hear or watch this are going to lose their minds.
That said, favorite is actually going back into the Roger Moore catalog, and it's The Spy Who Loved Me. For one thing, the Bond girl, Anya Amasova, I love her story. She's a KGB agent. James Bond actually kills her husband in the opening sequence, which is a skiing chase basically down the mountain, which is a great set piece to kind of start off the movie. She finds out later that James Bond killed her, but she has to work with him for part of the plot, so she's promising, okay, as soon as this mission is over, I'm going to kill you because you're my blood enemy. So it's got that classic relationship, but of course, he's James Bond, so she's going to fall in love with him, and they end up sleeping together.
Wow, what a break from the formula.
Exactly. Another element that I love about it is the super villain, sort of. Bond villain is essentially a super villain. He's got an undersea base, like an undersea laboratory that looks a lot like the headquarters of the Legion of Doom from the old superpowered cartoon.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Exactly. It's it's this weird sort of bug-shaped thing that kind of rises out of the water. So I love the atmosphere of a villain having an undersea lair. It's just great. He's gonna, set off these bombs. He's capturing submarines to instigate World War. His henchman is Jaws. I think it's the first time that we see Jaws.
That is his first appearance.
The first time I saw him, which was not in that movie, but the first time I saw him in a movie when I was a kid, he kind of scared the crap out of me. He's just got this horrible Frankenstein lurch figure with these... so just terrifying. And the thing is, he comes up again and again in this movie, and they keep fighting, and he keeps looking like he's going to die. He's pushed off of trains. He's dropped into a shark tank. Oh, the villain has a shark tank.
Well, of course he does. Yeah. Because of course.
Right. And Jaws is dropped into that shark tank, and you know who wins? Jaws. And I'm not talking about Jaws like the shark.
Because he bites the shark.
Right. He eats the shark. So I was like, yeah, okay, I love this. So there was just a lot about it. And then... probably the third greatest highlight, the real reason that it sold it for me, is for my money, it's got the best Bond theme song. Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better. Tom York from Radiohead called that the sexiest song that was ever written. And considering it wasn't written by Prince, I think that's saying something.
No, definitely. Paul?
My favorite, it's an easy one, again, Goldfinger.
That's pretty much the template Bond movie.
It is. I mean, it's like cheating. It's got.
That was the first one that I saw. Yeah.
Right, and it's got all of these unbelievable classic moments in cinema, not just in Bond films. You have Bond strapped to the table with maybe the most iconic scene, one of the most iconic scenes in the film. You have the the emergence of all of the Bond gear. You have his relationship with Q. You have the iconic scene of the girl coated in gold onto the table. You have, I think, one of the more interesting set pieces ever built, which was the 30-foot by 30-foot Fort Knox rising out of the floor model, which I have always envied and wanted. You have a character named Pussy Galore, who leads a team of pilots. You have Odd Job. I mean,
I think the best thing about Pussy Galore though is not just the name; it's Bond's reaction to it. She says, "I'm Pussy Galore," and he goes, "I must be dreaming." So that's the thing. If he hadn't said that, it would have been an eye roller. But the fact that that's his reaction, okay, yeah, now that's just perfect.
I honestly cannot think of a moment in Goldfinger that I don't enjoy. And there are some critiques about things slowing down, and that there are parts of the film that we don't necessarily need to see. I think from start to finish, though, it is an unbelievably good time.
Now, for me, my favorite is actually Skyfall, because every performance on that is spot on. That film is gorgeous. I think it is one of the most beautifully shot films of the last decade. I think that is a stunningly gorgeous film. The song is incredible. That film just wrapped me up so much, and for my money, it was such a wonderful marriage of the harsher-edged Bond that we had been getting with Daniel Craig, just leading into what we're going to be getting with Spectre, but leading into the Bond world as we knew it previously. I loved that bridging element. I love Judi Dench as M, and who I've always liked as M, but I think that was her best performance in that part. And even the side characters, Moneypenny's great, and Ralph Fiennes as new M is great. I just loved the heck out of that movie, and while I'll admit to logistical problems, I just don't care.
And Javier Bardem as Silva is probably the best Bond villain that I've seen.
Oh, he's right up there. I mean,
part of it is the legitimate menace that he feels, the blood vengeance.
But actually, and this is something I'll come back to when I talk about my underrated one. I love that the motivation for the villain is personal.
Any other thoughts on the favorites?
No, let's get to underrateds.
Okay, I'll start off again then. And it's Die Another Day.
Okay.
It's the Pierce Brosnan one, the last one that he did. I do think the Madonna song at the end of the movie is the worst James Bond song ever. If not, like, the worst song recorded probably that year. It's got this interesting hook at the beginning where he's captured, I think, by North Korea.
Yep.
And thrown in jail for like 5-10 years. Or maybe I'm exaggerating that. It's not that long, but
the song isn't great, but I do like that the opening credits are superimposed over images of him being tortured.
Yeah.
However long it is.
And like the MI6 has disavowed him and everything, and then but basically eventually they trade him back, and there's a whole action set piece. So you got this weird plot where the bad guy who you think is dead, who's like the son of this North Korean general, turns out he just went through like a skin grafting thing where he turns into a white Caucasian English guy, which
with a flawless accent.
Sure. And is that some kind of commentary? I don't know. I don't want to delve into that. And I think another reason that people kind of disavow it is because the inclusion of the woman who plays Jinx, which is
Halle Berry.
Could not think of her name. And she was hot for a while, and then at some point everybody just turned on her. But she's good. She's fine in the movie. I don't think the part is written very well, but no. I think she was an okay addition. I really liked the other Bond girl who was the villainous Rosamund Pike, who's dressed like the White Queen. She's just got this white diamond theme. She's a fencer. There's a lot of really cool stuff. There's this whole like battle in the middle of it in this ice palace in the Arctic, and of course there's a super laser that they're going to use to wipe out all of the landmines between North and South Korea. Like that is the doomsday weapon, so that the North Korean army can just invade. Right. It's like, okay, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but there is a really cool fight in the plane with this guy who's got like this glove that's just like full, like shoots electricity. There's a lot of weird stuff in it, and again, as I'm saying this, this sounds ridiculous. But there's just something watchable about it. And I really liked Pierce Brosnan's James Bond.
I think ultimately the problem with that movie was not any one element, but it was how many of those elements and how outlandish they were. Because that's the thing. You can get away with the ice palace, or you could get away with the sun laser, or you could get away with the invisible car, or you could get away with the para-surfing thing at the beginning. Trying to get away with all of those in the same movie, I think, is what broke the back of this thing.
I wouldn't mind watching it again. And that's kind of where I come down, why it's my underrated pick. So.
That's fair. Yep. We're skipping you. We're coming back to you. We need to end with you. For my underrated, it's another Brosnan, which is The World Is Not Enough.
Okay.
And the thing is, I think in the wake of Die Another Day, I think a lot of people just wanted to write off all of Brosnan except for GoldenEye. So no, this one had Denise Richards.
Yes, it did.
Which I'll get to that.
What's her name? Christmas Jones?
Yes, Dr. Christmas Jones,
of course.
I think the things that are good in this movie are actually like some of the best in Bond. Which, first of all, is the song. I love that song. That Garbage did that song, and it's phenomenal. The other thing that I really love in this film is the main villain. Not Robert Carlyle, because he's the henchman ultimately, but it's Sophie Marceau, who is initially set up as the love interest and then later is revealed to be the mastermind behind everything that's going on. And I love her for a couple reasons. The first is, a bit like with Silva and with Javier Bardem, even though she has a plan with huge implications and there's a lot at stake, ultimately it's very personal what she's doing. And I love how badly she got under Bond's skin. Because you can see it in his face. Because he's, first half of the movie, he's putting his neck on the line. He's almost dying, trying to protect her. And when she turns and she's torturing him, you can see how much this really gets under his skin. And I think that's perfectly epitomized in actually the fact that he shoots her dead in cold blood. What's happening is he's got her at gunpoint on the phone, trying to get her to call off the plan. And he says, tell him to stop or I'm going to shoot you. And what she says over the phone is, go ahead with the plan, and he shoots her. Shoots her in the head, and she's dead, and that's it. And it's so cold-blooded, but felt so earned because of what she put him through, that I love that. Now, it causes a problem because it means the entire climax of the movie, we're not dealing with the master, and we're dealing with the henchman who just didn't know to stop, which takes the stakes out a little bit. Now, as far as Denise Richards goes, I actually don't think she's as bad a Bond girl as people think. I think she... Well, here's the thing. I think she fits the general type fine. The mistake that they made was saying that she had a PhD in nuclear physics. That was the problem. And it was a problem that came out of a reasonable goal, which was, let's make a smarter Bond girl. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's what you're going for, you don't cast Denise Richards. And as far as the name, I don't think the name is any stupider than any other Bond girl name.
It's not, but it's clearly set up for the punchline at like the last line of the movie. And it's clear, like, you get to that point and you're like, yeah, we were waiting for that. It took you this long. It took, you an hour longer than we thought it would to make that jump.
Not fair.
I enjoyed that movie. That is one of the better Bond ones, especially from the Pierce Brosnan era. And I like that more than Die Another Day, a lot more. And for that reason, it's not on my underrated list. I would put that on one of the movies that I do like.
I don't consider underrated, but whenever I find myself in a Bond discussion or a Bond forum or whatever, people throw it under the bus like you wouldn't believe.
My thing with the Pierce Brosnan films, though, is that I don't have a lot of desire to go back and watch many of them. I enjoyed watching them at the time, but I don't have a particular compelling interest to go back and watch those films.
Before I let Paul say what he's about to say here, I need to preface this. Because when I first suggested this topic, that we all pick an underrated, it actually occurred to me to say flat out, nobody better try and defend this movie in my home. The thought actually occurred to me, nobody in their right mind would ever try and defend this movie. So you never disappoint me, Paul. What is your pick for an underrated Bond film?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk about Moonraker.
Ah, God, even the name, it hurts.
When did the Bond films have to get so damn serious? Right? And so this is one of the things that I love about Moonraker, is that if we look at the Bond films now, right? We take Casino Royale, and we take Skyfall, and we take, what is the second
Quantum
one?
of Solace?
No, I don't think that's its name. The one of which we do not speak. And we take those movies, they are so dreadfully serious, right? And they're just this dirge, and there's fight scenes that are black and white, and it's just death and mayhem. So Moonraker, this is how Moonraker opens, right? Is we have our pre-title scene with James Bond in a plane putting the moves on a stewardess, and she delivers a line that is, "Much higher, Mr. Bond, and my ears might pop," as he's sliding his hand up her side. To which I go, hee hee. And then she pulls a gun on him, right?
Because
Bond.
Because it's James Bond, right? And he doesn't look particularly upset or even surprised. It's just, again, right? And out of the cockpit walks the pilot with a fantastic fake mustache and these dark aviator glasses, and he's wearing a parachute. It's very clear what's about to happen. And he turns around and he shoots a bullet into the console. and, well, the plane's going to go down. And James is just sitting there, leaning back on the couch inside of this plane. And he doesn't look concerned at all. He hasn't even changed his posture. Because he's James Bond, right? And he knows he's going to get out of this, right? And it's so much fun. Now, so this is the opening moments, right? And then it leads to him eventually they get into a fight, he and the pilot, right? And he gets thrown out of the plane by Jaws. Yay! And so Jaws is back, and he's tossed out of the plane without a parachute. And so we have this amazing sequence of James falling through the sky, and he's gonna die. Oh wait, but there was a villain thrown out ahead of him. And so what does James do? He squirrel flies his way over to that guy. They fight in the sky over the parachute. James eventually gets it, kicks that guy to his eventual death. You're like, okay, James is okay. But no, Jaws has jumped out. So for your money, did you think that one sky fight was enough? No, this movie delivers two. And so the second sky fight between him and Jaws, that he does eventually win, and Jaws goes to pull his parachute out, and he rips the ring out, and he falls to his death into a circus tent, and of course not, he lives. The thing that why people hate on this film, right, is because it's James Bond in space. Also, there is a scene that takes place in Venice where he is driving around a hover gondola. Now, laugh you might, but James Bond is a resourceful agent, and when the need calls, he has at his beck and call a hovercraft gondola. 1977, we have the release of Star Wars. This movie comes out in 1979. It's very clear they're trying to capitalize on the popularity of Star Wars, and I mean, there's no question at all. It's basically like, wow, Star Wars was really popular, it was a blockbuster. Could we put James Bond in space? Well, why can't James Bond go to space? And in fact, if we needed somebody to go to the space, wouldn't we want James Bond to be the one that we would send into space? Yes is the answer to that question, right? And do I want to see James Bond in space? Yes, I want to see James Bond in space, beating up all the villains and the bad guys, because who else would Earth send, right, into space but James Bond? Long story short, also, actually, let's back up. There is a love story between Jaws and a character named Dolly. I don't know why that's in the movie. By the end of the film, it gets revealed that Drax's plan was to wipe out the Earth by using this toxin that he was going to launch into the upper Earth's atmosphere, and he was going to wipe the planet out and then repopulate it with the perfect race. Why do I love this film? Because Roger Moore, I think, is an excellent James Bond. We get to see him in his glory in this film. It's about technology, a self-assured James Bond. It's not about fight choreography, right? You know James is going to win, right? It's about the fact that he's got this kind of smirk, a punch, right? A clever idea or solution to the problems. He's gonna get the girl, and there's usually several for him to choose from over the course of the film. And throughout it all, it's just fun to watch. It's entertaining, it's crazily entertaining to watch this film.
I have not seen Moonraker. I'll put that out there. I haven't seen this one, but I have strong thoughts. And they're mostly just about Holly Goodhead. So
It's actually Dr. Goodhead.
Of course it is.
Yes.
All right, Nathaniel, your retort.
Okay. You have chosen in your mind to say the reason people crap on this is because it's Bond in space. And you are wrong. It is not because it is Bond in space. People crap on it because it is a cartoon parody of a Bond film. You completely glossed over the tram fight. Allow me to paint this picture for you. Bond and Dr. Holly Goodhead, which I don't think she's really a doctor because she's a CIA plant to be an astronaut. So I think that's a fake doctorate. So they're in this tram. They're at some crazy height above the Earth. Jaws stops it with his hands, so it's now staying still. He bites one of the cables and it breaks, but nothing falls. That bite was just to show off his ability to bite. So rather than biting the rest of the cables until the thing falls and they plummet to their death, he hand over hands it down the cable to the car to get into one of the most unenthusiastic fist fights I have ever seen in my life. So eventually this fight, she and James are sliding on a chain down the cable of the tram. Jaws has gotten the thing moving again, so he's now basically chasing after them with the tram. And as they get close enough to the bottom, they drop and they make it safe. He crashes into a building to then be rescued by this woman literally half his size in blonde pigtails, who is going to be his love interest, and the reason he betrays the villain because he finds out, well, she's not part of the master race, so she's not in the plan, so I betray you, Drax, for tiny Swedish meatballs girl. This is like a template for James Bond Jr. That's how preposterous this is. Now that gondola, okay, look, I did not rewatch this movie because I have too much self-respect. But I rewatched the gondola chase because I remember hating it first time I saw it, and I just wanted to see, was it as bad as I thought it was? No, it's worse. Because well before we get to the point that it's hovering across Venice Square, all right?
Double take pigeon.
Yes, a pigeon does a double take after this thing. Okay, but well ahead of all that, he's got a little motor, so he's got a speedboat gondola. Fine, cool, I'll go with that. But again, just making the point, this is a cartoon parody of Bond. He slices through this other gondola, a genuine gondola that has lovers on the front end, the gondolier on the back. The gondolier sinks, and the lovers who are making out just float off, and they're fine. When it turns into the hovercraft and gets up onto the street, the villains just stand there dumbfounded in their own gondola. Now, there's nothing stopping them, because they've got a motor on theirs, getting close enough to get up onto land and catch this thing because it's moving at a brisk walk pace. There's nothing stopping them from getting this. But no, they have to turn their speedboat around and one of them fall off into the water going, "Ah!" And the other one calls him idiota in some ridiculous accent. And no! Dude, no!
I'd like to counter with the centrifuge scene, where easy for you to say, centrifuge scene, wherein James is nearly killed in a centrifuge.
Okay, if we've got like Skyfall and Casino Royale on one end, and Austin Powers and in like Flint.
This is way closer to that is closer to those than it is to any other Bond film.
Yes, and I think so. You're absolutely right. The film is filled with problems. I admit that. The reason that I like this film is that there is this spirit, at least in the film, of fun and of being with a self-confident, cocky James Bond who knows he's going to win, right? And has that kind of swagger to him, despite all of the flaws that are in the film. And I admit there are many. Right?
About the one thing that I won't knock is Roger Moore's performance, because you're right. He's got the swagger, he's got the confidence, and that's fine. But everything around him is cartoonish. I can't think of any other word other than cartoonish.
And mark my words, we will see James Bond in space again. Maybe not in this ghost movie he's in. But
James Bond will return for Bond 25 in space.
Oh boy, I think we'll wrap it up there. What did you guys have that you wanted to plug this time around?
I'm done.
Neither of them have anything that they're ever doing ever again. Thanks so much for joining. Okay, go ahead.
A number of podcasts that you can find me on. The Secret Origins podcast, which is available on iTunes and Stitcher, dedicated to the DC Comics series Secret Origins. A Star Wars podcast called Dead Both and Spies, which is available on iTunes. And Paul and I are working on the webcomic Red and Green, which is going to be making a resurgence at some point in 2016.
It is. You can find me in places such as dramas and films.
On networks.
But I'm also the writer for Rising Sun Comics on a property called Armadillo Justice, which I think one of the first issues has come out, or not?
I think the first issue's out.
Yeah. So, anyway.
So I guess that's about it. Thanks so much for joining me, guys.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Until next time, this council is adjourned.